Hi, welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. I'm your host, Eric Matei, joined today by Natasha Vora. Natasha is the CEO of 1284, and Natasha is joining us today for a deep dive into the latest consumer trends in optical and some different ways in how you can position your practice for success. Now, we all know this is a really hot topic, and we're going to be touching on a few different things here that from the get-go, I know Natasha said before we go live, she's like, Eric, from the get-go, there's probably going to be a lot of questions. So throw my email address out there from the very beginning. So as we're going through this, if you want to go deep dive, hit up Natasha at 1284.com. And also, if you are tuning in live right now, drop some comments. We're coming to you live on LinkedIn, on Meta. So drop some comments. We can't see your questions here for Natasha. So that was a mouthful to get out to kick us off here, Natasha. But for starters, thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of Akrinos Access.
Always a pleasure to talk with you, Eric. You're awesome.
So to start the conversation, I think let's just attack some of these big gorillas in the room, right? I mean, we know here, and by the way, this live recording is towards the end of February 2024. We've seen some really radical things occurring here across the optical industry, and excited for Natasha to kind of dispel some of the myths and really shed some light on the good hard facts around it. So Natasha, why don't we start it by attacking some of these big gorillas in the room as far as what's going on, consumer patient behavior in the modern optical?
Sure. Well, maybe I can just actually back up, Eric, if you don't mind, and I'll just kind of throw out some high-level statistics in the industry, which I don't, it's interesting because we're in such a dynamic and unique industry. It's a massive one. The optical industry alone is just $66 billion. And so that makes up like exams, that makes up the lenses, the frames, the contact lenses, the plano sunglasses. That's a really huge number. And when you actually break that down even further, 200 million adult Americans have a vision correction need. So that's like 8 out of 10 US adults have a vision correction need, which is pretty outstanding. And so, we hear so much about healthcare and the changes in healthcare when you go to your doctor and you're accessing your patient records and your my chart and things like that. But what people don't really realize is actually eye care could be considered one of the most important aspects of healthcare. I mean, it can diagnose early detection of diabetes. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so,
Absolutely.
so I think we have to sometimes take a step back and say, gosh, every doctor that exists, eye doctor that exists, is really doing such an amazing job. I mean, their job is so incredibly important. And we have to remember that the patient interaction with the doctor is so important. So, I'll go into a little bit of maybe not doom and gloom, but maybe what is some of the reality and the shift in behavior that may not be as favorable to the doctor from the doctor perspective. But I don't think it's there's no hope. I think that in fact there's a lot of hope. And what I was going to say was there is a massive shift for people wanting to go online. I mean, that is
Absolutely.
our dynamic today. Even when we as consumers put ourselves outside of eye care and just think about how we probably got an Amazon box delivered to our house this week. And so how is it when you're sort of ingrained in that behavior of having quick delivery, having things at your fingertips, having that convenience? How is it that we could just expect that to change, let's say, when it comes to glasses and getting contact lenses or, the frame and lenses after an exam? So that's sort of my segue into one of the sort of the major shifts that we're seeing, and the data supports that too. I mean, 10 years ago, less than 3% of purchases for eyewear were done online, and now we're getting, in terms of volume, we're at about 15% now. So that has increased significantly over the last decade.
That is absolutely fascinating. That was actually going to be, that kind of some of these opening stats you shared with us. I mean, starting with how big this industry is, $66 billion industry,
Yeah.
inclusive of all vision and eye care professional fees and uh and optical retail, right? And ancillary, right? But furthermore, the fact that how much of the population is needing care. It's fascinating. I mean, roughly 80% of the US adult population needs some form of vision correction. And
Correct.
then to consider that a decade ago, barely anything was going online, and now 15%, what's that? Roughly 1 in 6
Hmm.
eyewear purchases are going online. So let's kind of dig into this a little more and maybe help us understand some of that patient journey, right?
Yep.
I mean, if we're seeing this, and we can only assume that, well, I mean, there's a lot of shifting consumer patterns, as you've mentioned. I mean, many of us have received an Amazon package or some sort of home delivery within the last week, if you will. So let's kind of unpack that, no pun intended. Let's unpack that a bit as it pertains to how digital and e-commerce is really starting to impact the optical business.
Yeah, so really, when the Vision Council, there, it's just the amount of data that you can get from the Vision Council is quite extraordinary, but unfortunately, it's not necessarily something that practices are able to access. So I'm just going to put it out there right now, if anybody that's listening, and I don't know if it's just you and me talking right now, Eric, or if there's many people on here, but I'm always just, happy to talk with people, and anybody can reach out to me at any point in time. My email is there. So just let me know if you want to have the latest market insights report from the Vision Council. It's actually really compelling, and I've been studying this market data for a very long time, since the early, around 2010, when I first got into the industry. I was always very fascinated by what the Vision Council provides. So, as vendors, I think we should be disseminating that information to our practices more, because then they would have maybe a little bit of a better understanding of the consumer behavior and the dynamics that are happening in the industry. But um, this Vision Council data does, in fact, show that there is a decline from when somebody is actually having their butt in a chair with for an exam, right? And the majority of exams are done in independent eye care practices. About 58%, close to 60% are done in the independent doctor's office, which is doors that are less than 3 doors. So if it's a multi-location, it would be considered moved up into a corporate kind of positioning. But the majority of exams are done in an independent office, and then they lose quite a bit of ground. More than percent, they lose ground when it comes to the purchase of the frame and the lenses. That dynamic shifts then to either online, or it goes to a corporate environment. And corporate can be Costco and Walmart, which are the big ones now that are
Sure.
gaining ground when you look at the data. So what that says, when the charts are kind of exposed more in the Vision Council, shows that when a consumer is asked why, what is most important when it comes to an eye care purchase, when eyeglasses purchase, the answer is price. So price ends up being very, very important to a consumer. And when maybe the practice that is in a rural location, maybe they're in somewhere in Kansas, and they deserve to treat their patients with dignity and allowing them to, walk out the door with a beautiful pair of glasses, no matter, if it's a high-end product, or, something that's still nice, that doesn't necessarily have to be valued to the point that it degrades the integrity of their practice by offering something that's, kind of garbage and quality,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
So they deserve a nice pair too. But when the lenses are double the price as a frame on average, that's double. Um, it all adds up. You know, the a la carte system that we have in eye care for glasses is very kind of convoluted. And so by the time it gets to the end of the a la carte menu and transaction down to the AR coding, which is only half, people only take AR coding half the time, according to the data. So 50% of people walk around with no AR, and that's because it's the last part of the equation. Not everybody can, you know, walk out and finalize that amount that they have to pay, including the AR. So um you know, I think what we have to try to do is consider that what is going to keep them within the practice and not necessarily say, can I have my prescription? I'm going to have to go to Walmart now,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when people, maybe the practices don't have the kind of purchasing power from, you know, Essilor or some of these lens companies, they don't have that purchasing power. Now they feel the dynamic is they have to be part of a buying group. They have to be part of something to give them that purchasing power to bring down the cost so that they can then be able to cater to all kinds of people, all kinds of walks of life for their practice.
There's so many really powerful insights you've shared there, but also interesting just kind of concepts to explore. I mean, first and foremost is simply the fact that 60% of professional services are being sought in the private practice setting, right? And Natasha, obviously, I mean, look, the world of what you guys are doing at 1284, and certainly the world of Akrinos is supporting independent private practice, right? So it's exciting to see that those stats are still maintaining. However, you're pointing out that there's this big shift where now price is becoming ever more a decider. As a matter of fact, Natasha, I've got a two-part article coming here in Review of Optometric Business exploring this sort of retraction of consumer like discretionary spending, household discretionary spending, and how it's impacting optical, right? And
Mhm.
really, if we look at the economics behind it, what this all boils down to is that now eyewear has very much become commoditized
Mhm.
and it's easily substitutable, right? At least the perception from a patient standpoint, because something we certainly haven't even gone into, and then again, I suppose you did touch on it, the fact of how many patients are walking around without AR. I mean, we're talking about important aspects of these devices
Mhm.
that now in this new environment is being kind of left out, right?
Yes.
And obviously, I think we agree bringing that to the forefront, right? Because now we're talking about patient care, patient experience, right? Not just bling or name on the side of a frame, if you will. But something else that you mentioned that I really am a huge fan of, and I've been a fan of what you guys have done with 1284 from the get-go, and understanding how you all make private optical accessible, because I
Mm.
think that's also something really important for everyone to really keep in a good understanding of here is there are plenty of patients who are purchasing higher end luxury, what have you, right? But we all know that that's not the right fit for everyone, and
Mm.
it's not accessible to everyone. So I think it's important to realize the opportunity here, and I think this will be a nice segue into talking about what you guys are doing at 1284. And please share if you have more stats and stuff. Feel free to share. But I'm eager for you to share a little bit about what you guys are doing to really disrupt this rising e-commerce marketplace for eyewear. I mean, let's face it. You kicked off with that stat that 10 years ago, 1 in 30 pairs of eyewear were going online. Now we're down to like 1 in 6. I mean,
Mhm.
where are we going to be in just 1 or 2 years' time? So I'm excited for you to talk about 1284, but I think as we're jumping into that, and maybe you can use this as a transition, Natasha, to understand how it balances what you've already got in your optical, right? It's not a matter of someone who's coming to you for the cool independent line that they can only get at you, that they're not going to find online or anywhere else, you're not going to lose those patients. They're already coming to you for a reason. But it's 40%, and in some practices pushing 50% of patients that you've just shared.
Yeah.
Vision Council data, price is it. And if we don't show up and have something high quality that also protects the health aspects of it, then we're going to lose those patients to something where the quality is not going to be there. And I think we all know the health of some of this stuff, the actual integrity of the quality of the device is far inferior. So, wow, really, really far stuff. So yeah, why don't you talk about that? Why don't you talk about where 1284 is coming in and really disrupting this e-commerce space for the independent?
Well, first, I'm just going to back up and say that almost 50% of US adults make less than $60,000 of household income. And that's kind of something that we might tend to forget. But that is a very real, $60,000 for a household, that's going to be where they're going to have to make decisions as a household on how they're going to spend, and putting food on the table and communicating with the family with a cell phone bill and things like that we all know are very important necessities, and keeping a roof over their head. So when it comes to glasses, they I really do believe people innately want to support local. Majority, I'm not saying everybody, but I do want to believe that people want to support local, and that local optometrist is important and vital to, and they may have gone, their whole family has maybe gone to the same eye doctor for years. And so I just hate to think that somebody, though, is having this quality care from the chair, and then that journey that should extend into the optical has to abruptly come to an end because they can't afford the pair of glasses that are being sold in the office. And I don't think the doctor, he or she, wants to necessarily lose them either, because the clarity of the lenses that they may be getting online is not going to be the clarity that they would want to have for their patient, so keeping that within, I think, and trying to secure that from beginning to end is important. And so I think this is where practices are going to need more help from their EHRs to be more efficient. I think workflow and efficiency is going to be so critical in the future that I think practices need to demand innovation and need to demand integrations that matter to them from their electronic health records companies. God forbid you're providing these electronic health record companies with the most powerful data, and they're storing that important data on your behalf, really. And so hopefully they can use the future of AI and innovation to provide a service back to you that is what you need to be more efficient in your practice. And we know that time is money. So, let's demand more from our EHRs, so that they can carry into the future and be more innovative. And that's where 1284 comes in. I mean, we are not only a brand, I think a beautiful brand, 1284, the year glasses were invented in Italy. Every frame in our collection is named after a city around the world. Just really wanting people to feel connected with one another, and no matter where they are in the world, what their background is, their heritage, we're all one. We all want to see clearly. And so 1284, I think, is a beautiful brand, but we're all about providing a more affordable but quality product for eye doctors to remain competitive, still have a perfectly healthy margin, so that they can run their business, but doing it in an efficient way where 1284 doesn't come off the boards. We have all the stock at the lab, so they go ahead and put an order through their EHR or through our portal, and it's very efficient. You're not sending the frame in a box to the lab that then you have to follow up with a phone call and match up the frame to the lenses. None of that. We make it as easy as possible so that we're always thinking about how time is valuable to the practice and we're trying to make them more efficient.
You touched on a really couple really key pieces there. I think one is, and I know I think we both overlooked it as far as to kind of realize that this is really a key piece. The fact that half of the population, I know you just wrapped up talking about like tech and stuff, but we need to recall, as you pointed out, half of the U.S. population household income is at or below $60,000, right? And that's really where this is going to fit. Realizing that there's a huge chunk of the population that doctors want to deliver the highest quality, but also realizing, hey, price is of real consideration. It's important to make these big decisions, but through it all, realizing that it's not a substitute for the other really cool far out stuff you may have going on in the optical, but positioning to have something that is accessible. And then realizing that there's also this other dynamic. It's going to be really interesting to see how e-commerce and optical continues to evolve as more and more technologies are coming out. And to your point, 1284 integrating with technology, but also let's think about some other radical technologies out there, such as online eye exams and evaluations. I mean, it's something that insurers are certainly, so they're wanting to kind of make this move into these areas, leveraging technology to provide that care. So it raises all this question through and through. Where does the private practice fit in? And in 1284, how you all pull all this together and present. I don't think you jumped on it, you've shared it just yet, but I know some cool e-commerce offerings also that you guys are having as far as maintaining the patient relationship. A lot of really key pieces. Actually, why don't you share that, Natasha? I know it's some exciting news in 1284's world here as of late.
Well, so before 2024 comes to an end, we will be taking the brand e-commerce, but we're doing it in a very unorthodox way where it's not going to be your typical and I just froze. So I'm not sure if that's going to be an issue or not.
We can say you're back. You're good.
That's good. So basically, we are going to have 1284 be e-commerce for those people that maybe want to have the convenience of buying online, but we are going to be able to detect when the patient is coming from a partnering doctor of ours, and we would be able to provide full credit to the doctor, whether the patient purchased in their office or whether they purchased online. They would still be getting a full credit the way they do as if the patient just bought from them directly. So it's not our sale, it's the doctor's sale that we're transacting on their behalf. And I think this is going to be an important way to move forward in the future, just because we don't know what people have going on. If after a refraction, they're ready to look at glasses, or who knows, we don't know people's situation. Maybe they're only on a 1-hour lunch break for all we know. So, I think that's going to be an important step into the future to see if that's a way that people want to interact with a brand, and there'll be much more to come.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. It's really fascinating the direction you guys are going. As a matter of fact, as you were mentioning that, Natasha, we've got John Manwaring. John, what's happening, man? Thanks so much for tuning in. John Manwaring, they have a really beautiful optical up in Richland Center, Wisconsin. Diplopia. Everyone out there, look them up. Diplopia.co. Really cool website too. But John, actually, John's chiming in. Hey, he's already seen, y'all, VSP, the big vision plans are already getting into this type of stuff. So really exciting to see and hear of the direction that you guys are going with that.
And real quick, I just want to say hi to John, because I'm a fellow Wisconsinite, John. I live in Madison, so cheers.
Yeah.
And John's right. I mean, the
Yeah.
reality is though, is that not everybody wants to be beholden to vision care plans. I mean, not every, 33% of patients have no managed care plan. I mean, think about the people in your community maybe that, work in a restaurant, that bartend, that work in the retail store. Maybe they don't have insurance. And so, the 33%, according to the Vision Council, don't have managed care. So what are we doing to make sure that we're catering to those people, obviously? But even if you do have managed care, I think that you can get creative, and I don't think you have to just assume that you have to right away put them into a certain pair of glasses because they have managed care. I mean, there's so many different ways you can slice and dice it. Too much contact lenses is maybe bought online. How can you maybe consider applying vision care plan to the contact lenses and now offering an affordable cash pay pair of glasses for their nightstand. Now your average order value increases. Just kind of getting creative and thinking outside the box. But I don't think just because someone says I have VSP that means, oh shoot, we're going to lose them as a patient. I don't think that at all. I think that there's going to be less dependency over the coming years on managed care.
Yeah, and I think, look, I mean, there's a number of dynamics that's driving that. I mean, the least of which, thinking more and more practices and patients together are realizing, wow, we can actually do more together.
Mhm.
Sans managed care, right? I mean, the patient can get an enhanced experience, higher quality of care, more bang for their buck, and the practices, I mean, hands down, uh, the numbers speak for themselves, right?
Right.
As a matter of fact, Natasha, that may be another conversation for another time to have you come on back, and maybe we'll get some other industry friends involved for that,
Yeah.
right? Because
I mean,
lot of interesting dynamics going on there.
yeah, an anagram and practice pal. I mean, those are really great innovative technologies that you can really kind of get creative on how you're presenting that narrative. You can change the narrative.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on that note, before we close out and do a send off, I did want to give a shout out to those that are hanging out that chimed in here in the comments. Katie Grace, Katie Dembski, who runs operations over there at 1284. And for those of you that ever visit the 1284 booth at any of the big shows, you've probably have met Katie. And certainly if you're a client of 1284, you've connected with Katie. John Manwaring. Again, John, thank you so much. As a matter of fact, this is another sort of the comment that John had posted earlier in the thread, like when we were talking in the conversation about what do practices do, talking about these different creative ways, right?
Mhm.
And John
Mhm.
shares another suggestion there, right? Like another creative way to adapt your optical for this environment. You mentioned Review Wave a moment ago. Our good friend Jen Denham, now head of growth over there at Review Wave. Really cool stuff. Jen, thank you so much for tuning in. Natasha, what a fascinating conversation. I mean, from the statistics, the fact that now 1 in 6 pairs of eyewear are going online, and 1 in 3 consumers are making these purchases, and there's no managed care, right? 1 in 3 patients
Yeah.
are coming into practices without managed care. There's just so
Mhm.
much opportunity here. So
There
before we go though, for folks who would like to continue the conversation, learn more, I know you get around LinkedIn, engage in a lot of really great stuff there. So folks can connect with you on LinkedIn, and also folks can reach out to you directly via email.
Absolutely. Always happy to talk with people and learn and just yeah, feel free to reach out to me, Natasha at 1284.com, and then I can give you my phone number. You can text me. We can become best friends.
That's it. But start with an email. Just first, start with an
Sounds
email.
good.
Uh, well, again, Natasha Vora, thank you so much for joining us for a really fascinating conversation all around these consumer trends in the modern optical and how to position your practice for success. For our viewers out there, we hope you found this valuable. If you're looking for more great practice management insights and business solutions, head on over to Akrinos. Check out all the cool things we've got there. And connect with Natasha and 1284, and wherever you are in that journey, that practice journey, that private practice journey, whether you're just starting out, cold starting or purchasing a practice, or you're planning for that next phase of growth, or you're planning for the transition. Know there's a lot of organizations out there, just like Akrinos, just like 1284, that are here to take care of you and provide you with the solutions you need to really achieve that next business milestone. So wherever you are in it, keep on blazing trails and go for it. And Natasha and I will be here cheering you on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eric, for having me.
Thanks so much, Natasha.